All right, top of the draft. Is he going quarterback for the Tennessee Titans? No. Abdul Carter, number 1 overall to the Tennessee Titans. We'll get into these other picks as well. Cam Ward going to the Browns and Travis Hunter going to the New York Giants. But Abdul Carter going to the Titans. We've seen a lot of Travis Hunter up there. I'll tell you what we're not seeing right now, Sam. We're not seeing quarterbacks being picked by the Titans. It's another draft analyst not going quarterback for the Titans. This is becoming more and more like it might be a reality come night 1 of the draft.
Well, I mean, it's certainly what is currently being thought. Whether or not that stays true all the way through to the draft is another thing. But right now, people are buying the kind of seeds that the Titans are sowing in terms of, we might not go quarterback at the top of this draft. We're not going to pass up a generational player at XYZ. Yeah, I think people are believing that at the moment, at least. And the last one we were talking about, it was Travis Hunter at the top of this draft. This one, I think, was go back a few weeks. This would have been more of an obvious, like Abdul Carter was the guy being talked about as a number 1 pick in a draft where you're not taking quarterbacks. And it's usually like this is where the default typically is, right? You're either going offensive tackle and there's nobody in this draft that people love at the top of the board, or you're going edge rusher. And Abdul Carter is that guy. And we talked about him a little bit before. I mean, he's got that freaky burst, that explosiveness. He's still really inexperienced. I mean, the guy only moved to edge rusher like last year. And even within the same year, you saw an incredible development in his play in terms of reading the game, understanding the types of blocks that were coming his way. So I get it. I mean, I understand why you get number 1 hype and number 1 potential out of Carter. And you go to a team like Tennessee, who we talked about as needing edge rusher reinforcements, right? So it makes sense. I mean, it ticks the boxes for the Titans.
Yeah, it absolutely fits a need for Tennessee, and you're certainly not going to be need drafting at number 1 overall and just taking a position that you need. Everybody needs pass rush. Everybody needs an every down player like Abdul Carter. I had some concerns as early in the year about Abdul Carter completely transitioning to the edge. Right, certainly had all the traits, had all the ability, but he was pretty much a full-time linebacker. The way that we've described a Jalen Walker as a guy that plays linebacker and used as a blitzer and dabbles on the edge. That's what Abdul Carter did in 2023. So he was a little part-time, a little bit of both. And this year, moved to full-time edge. It kind of started slow, but as you mentioned, as the year got on, he got better and better. So I think he's a great fit for the Titans. And we go back to them saying they're not going to pass on a generational guy. And I know that term's thrown around a ton. I just want to say, if we're really describing generational players, I think you could add that tag to a guy like Micah Parsons. And that's the guy, because he wears number 11 and went to Penn State, that Abdul Carter gets compared to the most. But you can make the argument that Micah Parsons is legitimately generational. Now, I don't know if you're talking about a generation as every 25 years or every 4 or 5 years in NFL draft terms, but Micah Parsons did transition from linebacker to edge, became one of the best edge rushers in the league right now. That does not happen, right? So Micah Parsons produces at a similar level as the Myles Garretts and the Nick Bosas of the world and the TJ Watts. That's true. But the way that he did it was absolutely special. And now you're trying to replicate that with Abdul Carter. We just don't see too many true off the ball linebackers have this pass rush skill set and then transition to it. So I think the term generational should be reserved for guys like Micah Parsons. I'm not sure if Abdul Carter's there, but he certainly has all the tools to make that similar transition to become an elite pass rusher.
Yeah, I mean, it's always dangerous. This is like Aaron Donald, right? Like Kalijah Kancey drew inevitable Aaron Donald comps because he basically ended up testing almost identically to him in terms of height, weight, 40 time, all that kind of stuff, right? And as an undersized defensive lineman who was a good pass rusher in college, it's like there's no way of avoiding it. You're going to get comped to Aaron Donald. But Donald might be the best defensive player that's ever played the game. So comping anybody to him and saying this is the next Aaron Donald, like it's just unreasonable expectations. You are never going to hit that standard because Abdul Carter's wearing number 11, transitions from linebacker to pass rusher, is twitchy. You're going to get Micah Parsons comps. But again, Micah Parsons basically is one of one. Like almost nobody has ever made that transition from off the ball linebacker to elite top tier pass rusher. So applying that to anybody and expecting them to come up to that standard is harsh and unfair. So, comping Abdul Carter to Micah Parsons, I think is unreasonable. throwing around terms like generational is unfair as well. I think what you've got to do is just look at what he's done on 1 year's worth of sample size and say, all right, if we project this forward with more development and growth, is this worth number one overall in a draft where we don't love the quarterbacks? Is this at that kind of standard? Forget Micah Parsons comps, forget generational, comparing him to the last 10 drafts. Like, is this a number one overall caliber type of player? And I think you can definitely make the argument it is. I mean, his first step is crazy explosive. He's strong. Like, that guy's got some power and can run a tight arc, even with offensive linemen leaning on him. There's a lot of traits there that would correspond to all those traits you're looking for those top tier elite pass rushers. I don't think he's there yet, but he's only just started playing the position. So that's a little bit, tricky. That's a little bit of an unknown, a gamble, but I think you can definitely justify taking him here.
As we get into these next couple picks here, I think a lot of these QB decisions have to come down to not just the evaluations of the QBs, but also where the teams are in their life cycles. The rumblings we hear out of Tennessee are that this is a long-term deal, that they are, they've reset the front office. They're in year 2 of Brian Callahan as the head coach, that they are going to take their time. And I think that's why you're starting to see fewer QBs, fewer Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders mock drafts with the Titans at 1. That puts the Browns up on the clock at 2 and then the Giants at 3.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.